can I become a CEO of my own health? And if the answer is yes, what do I need to do to become this? What are the skills I need to learn? What is the vocabulary I need to learn? What are the different things I should do on a daily basis to make my own health a successful venture?
Hello and welcome to the Ronny Leber Show, where every week we bring you fascinating guests with inspiring stories of success and overcoming obstacles from the worlds of sports, business and entertainment. To support this channel, please subscribe, turn on the notification bell and hit the like button so that we can deliver you the best content possible. She grew up in communist Poland with a family dealing with chronic illnesses that taught her that quality healthcare is non-negotiable. She gained 15 years of experience across the globe in global business, finance, and healthcare. She's a longevity expert, a MIT-trained health tech nerd, and as a biotech and medtech entrepreneur, she's empowering patients with the tools they need to take control of their health like never before. Joining us live from Singapore, I'm very happy and delighted to have her on the show. Please welcome, here's Kas Bordier.
Hi, Ronny. I love the introduction. I will probably ask you to record it again. I can play it to myself. It makes me feel great. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome, and you will get the recording. It's part of the show. So today, actually, we'll learn about creating a healthy life. Where is the world of biotech heading, and also the opportunities that the biotech world provide for you in your career. But before we actually go there, when you just look at your life today and also what you just heard, the introduction, what comes to mind to you?
You know, the one thing, and every time I'm reminded, either by myself or somebody else, that kind of where I came from. The fact that I'm sitting here now in Singapore, I'm speaking to you, I just feel beyond grateful, because the way I was how I came to this world, it was not a given that I will be sitting here. So every day I feel it's a blessing, and I just feel very grateful. And also very, very excited to be alive in this part of the history, because there's a lot of beautiful stuff happening. Regardless of, I think, a lot of media tells us, I think world is pretty amazing these days, and I'm happy to share more from my little perspective.
Oh yeah, and I'm very excited to dive into that, because he also just came back from a trip with Peter Diamandis and so on, and we will get into all of that. But also to give the audience a bit more of an understanding of actually where you're coming from. Yeah, tell us, what was life like back then in communist Poland when you grew up, and also what did you imagine to become as a kid?
So think of it this way. So I was born in the 80s in Poland, which was on the eastern side of the Iron Curtain, which meant we were governed by a communist system, which meant everybody had nothing, literally nothing, and everything was controlled by a government in a way that was not human friendly. And what that meant was that there was a lot of struggle, there was a lot of uncertainty. Also, historically, for the listeners, if you know a little bit about Poland, we've been constantly invaded by our neighbors, which kind of created a little bit of a interesting mindset, so to speak. Now a lot has changed, but me growing up, it was really a lot of uncertainty, a lot of unknown. And that was then coupled with the fact that my mom, who is an absolute superwoman and superhuman, he was a single mom to myself and my sister. And which you alluded a little bit in my introduction, so thank you for that. I almost died at birth. So I was born very prematurely. And with the quality of healthcare back then, coupled with lack of resources, I had my christening in the hospital because the chances of my survival were 1%. So when you think from that perspective, what that meant after, it meant that the first 4 or 5 years of my life, it was hospitals in and out, and I didn't know better. So I kind of took it, this is how people live. And only later I learned it is not how people live. And on top of it, my sister was diagnosed with epilepsy. And for anybody wondering, it's not a big deal these days, although obviously it is a condition that has to be managed. But in the 80s, it was a very different ballgame. Now, it was very poorly understood. There was a lot of stigma coming from kind of epilepsy being the disease of the brain. And so I experienced very early on what stigma coming from not being fully healthy comes from. I experienced the fact that sometimes the answers to my sister's condition, an example, were literally in the country you were born in. The answers were there, and literally one country apart, we had very limited access to information, and just that medical knowledge was not spread. So to me, that should be literally illegal. The fact that we have now so much understanding of different conditions and our health and what can we do to really thrive, that should be a human right to have access to all of it. And this is really why I made that my life. But it didn't start this way. So initially I thought, how do I make sense of the differences that I'm seeing, not only in Poland, but as you know, comes 1990, 91, the Iron Curtain collapses.
Just a second before we take us there, just to basically, so you learned from a very early age that healthcare is something vital and important, and that this should be a human right, that this is something that is necessary. And then you learn that, hey, there are other places where this is totally accessible for everybody. And where I grew up, for whatever luck or condition or something, it's just not. And
yes.
Okay, so take us with you.
So that basically, I thought, I want to understand a little bit more how the world works. So I studied economics, business and finance, and I really went into that part of the business side. And even though health was always a big passion of mine, not only because of my own story and my sister's story, and for just to close that loop, my sister is doing extremely well. And she's an example of constantly being told, because of your epilepsy, you cannot do this, you will never have children in a natural way, you can never do this, blah, blah, blah. There was always a lot of you should not, you cannot. And she's an example of literally going 180 against this, being mindful and being smart, obviously. But her life is now beautiful. So she's a testimony also for me, a great reminder that being told no, or maybe you shouldn't by one doctor, it's just a suggestion. And it's, as long as we take it kind of into our own health, into our own hands, we can do a lot. So just to close that loop, I ended up studying in Vienna, actually.
Well, before you actually do that, before you actually
Yes.
Close that loop, because you mentioned that basically in Poland, you had nothing, or everybody had nothing. You were raised by a single mom, you and your sister. And to also then to go to the journey that you went through and that you're going to tell us about in a moment, the whole thing, and to end up where you are at right now, it requires a very strong mindset. Like, what was for you, what was going on in your mind that you said, okay, this is not for me. I'm not going to stay here. I'm not going to stay with the fate that actually was put upon me. When did you make the decision that life has to have more in store for me, and that I'm going to pursue everything that there's out there in the world to really pursue my dreams?
Yeah, so that is a very, very good question. So there were two things, two moments in my life that really made that shift. So one, being a younger sister to a sister with epilepsy meant that our household really ran around my sister's condition and a little bit of my condition. And I really felt almost like the big sister to my older sister, if that makes sense at all. And then what my mom was always saying, which when I was a kid really annoyed me, and only now I understood that she was beautifully priming my brain. I would come back from a kindergarten or from school, And I would complain about something. I would say, oh my gosh, this person said this, or I didn't like what the teacher said. And my mom would literally said, like it's a normal sentence, she would say, you almost died at birth. Everything you're going through now is a privilege. It's a gift. Enjoy it. And she would just walk off. Obviously, what I wanted was for her to say, yes, you're right. She shouldn't have said this or done this. But it wasn't the case. So I didn't appreciate it when I was a kid, but I really realized that I've heard it so many times. And one day it just clicked. I realized that I have, for whatever reason, I'm a very nerdy person. For me, education always came easy because I'm like a sponge. And because of that, not only what my mom was saying, but also then this coupled with my mom would say, look, education might be your beautiful way out of the situation we live in, and I will always support that efforts. And having, I think, the kind of almost like an emotional healthy blanket that I would know I'm just going to go and study and explore. So study in Vienna as an example, which was a big thing for me. I thought I'm just going to go. And if this doesn't work, I always felt I have a place to come back to, even though we had very little, but I had a very loving parent. Like I cannot, first I cannot thank my mom enough. And I wish she spoke English. She doesn't. So oftentimes when I quote her, I would just translate things for her to make sure she gets the credit. But it was really that, I thought first, it's crazy to me that I knew there were better answers and better solution for people, but they were just not in the country I was in. And I thought that's just not okay. That just because I was blessed to be born and survived in kind of that part of the world doesn't mean it doesn't create my destiny. All those words I've learned much later, not earlier, but it was really those two, a little bit of I want to have a better life for my family and for myself. And two, this unwavering belief that I can do it because my mom told me so. So she would just say, just go and try. And, nothing happens unless you try. So that mindset really stuck with me for a very long time. So it wasn't really one moment that shifted it. It was multiple little things that happened. And just one moment was this moment when I said, okay, that's it. I no longer want to hear your sister can be better, but you cannot afford it, or your sister can be better, but the doctors are not in your country. And I thought, great, so then let's move myself to a different country and make sure I can provide much more to my sister than being an annoying little one, which often that's how she talked to me about. Yes.
That's very fascinating. Really, that's very fascinating, because on the one hand, you saw everything was a privilege, basically. That just by being on this planet, and there was no complaining or you trained yourself, or your mom trained you from a very early age to see everything as a privilege, and everything that you're working towards to is actually something that is an opportunity, instead of seeing the obstacles in the way. If I rephrase it in a way, and also
Perfect.
to just go out and try. So,
yes.
Okay, so basically you got the opportunity to study abroad through a scholarship, actually.
Yes.
So you went to Vienna, and from Vienna to the world.
And exactly, and from Vienna to the world. It's one of those moments where I remember arriving in Vienna, and we were living in the dorms, and I walked into the dorm and into my room, or it was like a 2-bedroom little dorms like apartment. And I had my wonderful, wonderful roommate. Her name is Lizanne. We're still in touch till this day. And she literally, I remember this moment when she said, you look very nerdy, but your English is not good. I will help you with English and you help me with homework. And I'm like, this is great. This is amazing. So that's just as a plug-in for my amazing roommate. But honestly, being in Vienna, I also just saw people living such a different life to what I've ever knew back then. And I thought, just really started thinking, maybe, just maybe, I can think a little bit bigger about life, a little bit bigger about what's possible for me, for my family. That there is just that you almost dare to dream. You asked me, Ronny, earlier, what is it that I wanted to be when I was a kid? I didn't have those dreams. And that's very interesting because you asked this, and I thought I only started thinking dreams like who I want to become when I experienced what I now call the Western world. Because I just saw people, suddenly this became a new norm, that of course you think big, of course you dream big, of course you go after your dreams. It wasn't the environment I was raised in, it wasn't like that. So there you have it. Vienna was my way into the world, and then followed by Switzerland, followed by many years in London, and now 11th year in Singapore. So it's quite a journey, quite a journey.
Wow, incredible. And you touched something here that actually we had a conversation about before, because you said that when you came to the dorm and your roommate said, you don't speak very good English, but you look very nerdy. So
Yes.
to be honest, and then you told me that you really worked hard on your English. Yeah, you speak now 4.5 languages. You speak Polish, German, English, French, a bit of Spanish. And when you tell me, or tell our audience also, why it was so important for you to work on your English, and how this also has, what I was thinking when you tell this, the why, how this also relates to other areas of your life, because I believe it's not just about the English.
Yeah, very true. I mean, look, it was as simple as when I moved to the UK specifically, and I moved there for work. I got just incredible job offer that I thought I'm so underqualified to get, but I did get it. And I was working with really sophisticated English speakers, and I realized that having Eastern European accent was a disadvantage, and something that I'm not proud to say, to even think that I felt this way, but I really felt I really want to get better and have my English at the level that the first thing that when people meet me is not, oh, you must be from Eastern Europe, not because I'm not proud. I'm very proud to be from that part of the world. But back then, I really felt it was a disadvantage. And it took me a while to work on it. It took me a while to really understand how to speak
You felt like a
properly.
stigma or something.
Yes, absolutely. I felt like a stigma. And, in a way, which is funny, but now I'm thinking of connecting those dots. I think it was a little bit like the stigma that I felt when you were a sick child growing up in Poland, or having a sister with epilepsy that is really, as a health condition, was very misunderstood. I thought, oh, it's just another stigma, or like a little sticky that people put on you, and I just didn't like it. So yeah, it shaped me quite a lot too, because I also realized that, once you really realize that there is something that is holding you back, whatever that is, that you can change it. And that, to me, having even this as an example of, oh, it's possible. You're right, probably adjusted my behavior a fair bit later.
And isn't it interesting how oftentimes as human beings, we interpret something into something else where the other person has no idea about? Because you speak with somebody in London, he hears somebody with a maybe slight or however thick it is, Eastern European accent, and thinks like, okay, that person from Eastern Europe, and that person speaking the accent is thinking, well, this is me as a sick kid and so on, and I'm totally in a different identity.
Yes, that is so true. It's actually, quite terrifying, because you're absolutely right. I never experienced kind of anything negative from other people. It was my assumption of it. It was really my assumption. I heard some, general comments that were more about, oh, you're from Poland, therefore all Polish people are like this, which is obviously never true anyway, or, oh, from Eastern Europe, and therefore probably the best thing that I always like to repeat is that we are hardworking, because we are. But there were also some general statements that were not positive. But you're absolutely right. It's really more of a me, because of my childhood way of thinking. It just went very, very smoothly into my London time, for sure.
And to connect the dots even a bit more, so basically your upbringing was, and this stigma that you, or this identity that you attached with that, was actually also your driver. It was driving you to not only in your English, to better your English, it was also making you excel in other areas, wasn't it?
Oh, for sure, for sure. It's you absolutely nailed it. It's really this thinking of, if there's something I don't like, I have the power to change it. And I think if this is not like a superpower that we have as humans, I don't know what is, because it's literally this thing of, I'm not gonna accept what is, and I'm not gonna just go with whatever I believe is me. There are aspects of things that we can change, and I think that is a very powerful belief to have, to basically take responsibility for whatever there is that we're unhappy in our life. And again, I still use it till this day in so many aspects. But yes, it's a very, we as humans, I believe we are superhumans from the get-go. We just sometimes tend to forget about it, and maybe we just need a little bit more reminding that we are way, way more powerful than we allow ourselves to believe.
Wow, very beautiful. You can have that recording of that as well, of the gold that's coming out here. So you worked for 15 years, like when you went to London and so on, Switzerland, London. You worked for 15 years in the worlds of business and finance, and came back to something that has been with you from the beginning of your life, which is health. So how did you choose your path? And why is also healthcare or biotech and health tech, why is that such a fascinating field to be in?
So I tell you how it shifted. There were two things that happened. One is, I obviously didn't learn from the fact that my health was very poor when I was a child. And then as my life went on and I started living this, what I believe was a big life, traveling a lot and living in different countries, I thought, this is great. This is amazing. I love my life. And I absolutely did not take care of my health. So shockingly, my health at some point said, ha 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 ha, your lifestyle is really not there where it's supposed to be. And I basically went from, living a big life to being stuck between my bedroom and my kitchen and barely making it from one to another. And when something like that happens, you have a very vivid feeling of, okay, when I was a child, I didn't know the other way, but now as an adult, I really know what health tastes and feels like. And when your health is gone, literally nothing else matters. I truly believe that, and I just want people to never have to go through what I've gone through to get that aha moment. Because when you think about it, health is like your foundation of everything you do. You take my company, I can build another one. You take my house, hopefully I can get another one. I stop being friends with somebody, hopefully I can make other friends. The moment my health is gone, nothing else works. And so that was my aha moment. And also the fact that for probably 3.5 years, I was going from doctors to doctors, and everybody was telling me on paper, meaning the traditional blood work and different scans, you're okay. And I felt horrible. I didn't have energy. I had the biggest brain fog there is. And it's been a scary ride. So that was another one when I said, taking responsibility for my own health. And I literally said to myself one day, I said, Kas, you've done that before. You've learned something, you applied it in business, in finance, what have you. Why don't you do it with health? Don't be scared of, often when doctors speak, they use language that I understand is scary. It was very scary to me. And I thought, we can decode all of it, surely. We can ask better questions, surely. And so I decided to just basically stop trusting fully my doctors with all the love that I have for them and say, I'm gonna learn what to do to get this body working again, because sick me is not an option.
Wow. Sick me is not an option. I love that. And it comes back to the old saying that a healthy person has 1,000 wishes, a sick person only one. And that's beautiful. So as I know that you are also very involved in the world of psychology, or of growth, of personal development, what is the psychology behind health? Like, what does somebody need to believe in order to prioritize his or her own body, their own health?
You know, we discussed it actually a lot last week with Peter Diamandis and the people he brought together. Like, what is the health mindset that we need? And it's very interesting because it was probably 50 of us in the room and everybody had a different definition. So let me share what worked for me. One is that
Please.
we have to become the CEO of our own health, which means take responsibility for ourselves first, and then obviously still use our doctors to help us get to the optimal health, but not to fully rely on it. So to me, it's really the question of, can I become a CEO of my own health? And if the answer is yes, what do I need to do to become this? What are the skills I need to learn? No different to running a business. What is the vocabulary I need to learn? What is the different skill sets I need to learn? What are the different things I should do on a daily basis to make my own health a successful venture? So to me, it's really that. And, you know, it's quite upsetting. I wanted to use a stronger word, but I want to be respectful. That I believe that our current healthcare system, it's amazing when something acute happens to you, meaning touch wood, I break my arm. I absolutely want to go to a doctor and I want them to put it back together. This is fantastic. But this is a sick care, meaning something happens to me, I am sick, and therefore I'm going to a doctor. And the health mindset that I believe we have to all tweak a bit is the fact that if my current approach to health is a sick care, so I only go and seek my doctor when I'm sick, we need to shift it to a health care, meaning how do I care for my health so I stay healthy for longer? What do I do to not fall sick? And that's a small shift, but it's actually, when you think of from a bigger picture, what it means, what we have to do on a daily, weekly, monthly, annual basis, it's a massive shift. We're going from something happens to me, I'm a passive passenger and I really have no clue, to actually, no, I want to be the co-pilot together with my doctors. I am my own co-pilot. I learn all the basics and I'm very proactive in what I do about my health. So that would be probably my definition of psychology of health, which is not an easy shift for many people. And I understand that.
And I think one clear point about that is that in a business venture, when you're the CEO of something, then usually you hand off tasks to many different people, like you're leveraging your own self. But in this case, you cannot leverage your own body. Like you cannot have somebody else eat healthy for you.
So well said. Absolutely, so well said. And it's actually this analogy with building a business is a very good one, because even as running your own venture, and you obviously delegate to people hopefully smarter than you, you still have an overarching idea what you're trying to achieve, and then you just find the best people to help you get there. So he says this is exactly the same. But you're right. Often with our own health, we say, I'm just going to take a pill because it's a very smart person told me to do so, as opposed to because it's somewhat easier and it's more convenient, and we live in the world when convenience creates disease. And I truly say that openly, because it's easier than eating healthy every day. It's easier than moving every day. It's easier than saying, I really want to stay and watch this show or hang out with my friends, but actually I should probably get some sleep, because it is another foundational stuff for my health. So yes, those shifts are not easy, but I think once you do that and you start feeling better every day and life tastes better and everything you ever really dreamed of you can go after, then there is no coming back, because then you really can, you feel the difference. There's such a big difference when people I work with, when they say, oh my gosh, I've started doing this and this and this, very small changes, and my head is clear, I have much more energy. I actually started to love my work again, because often, people, it's very interesting because we spend so much time working. And then suddenly when people say, I hate my job, often it literally has to do with the feeling they get. But because they're exhausted, they don't sleep well, they don't eat well, they also run this association, going back to psychology of health, that when I'm at work, I feel crappy. And therefore, it's the work that is the problem. And sometimes it is, don't get me wrong. I do believe working in a way that doesn't spark your energy is not great. But on the other side, there are plenty of examples when the moment people started feeling better about themselves, work got better, and therefore they suddenly started loving what they do.
Wow. Okay, a few things actually that we touched on here right now that came to my mind. On the one hand, it's all about really becoming a CEO of your own body, becoming a CEO of your health. That's one thing. The other thing that you actually mentioned when it was about like, it's very easy to take a pill. I just remembered, I don't know, it was maybe 15, 20 years ago, my grandma, she had like her little case where every day she had like all the pills in there that she was going to take. And I remember I was there and I was looking at that and I was like, Grandma, like, what are you taking all those pills for? Like, are you sure you need all those pills? And she was like, they're just that small. Like, like, we're like, okay, just because they're small doesn't mean that they don't do anything with your body. Yeah. So that was kind of a funny way. But also one thing that you actually touched was about the importance of psychology and of mindset and of mentality. So where do you see the connection, or how connected is the mental aspect, like the mental health, with the health of your physical health, and also with longevity?
Yeah, great question. It's, to me, mental health, similar to mindset, those two go so hand in hand. And the part about mental health, and I'm really happy that there is more and more conversations openly about it now, and is no longer a stigma. As you can see, it takes me back to my childhood when my sister had epileptic episodes, and people were calling her all sorts of things. Because the thing with mental health, what I believe is quite important to point out, if, again, touch wood, if I scratch or if I cut my hand and I'm bleeding, people can see, right? So then I go to a doctor, nobody questions. They said, of course, if she went to a doctor.
There's proof.
Mental health, still, there's proof. Absolutely. There's proof, right? Mental health, you can see. And that's really tricky one, because then not only we still, I think, struggle to express our true emotions, how we feel. And mental health, again, not only we don't have the vocabulary and we were never trained to talk about mental health. And on top of it, you talk about your mental health often to people who never had any of those symptoms, so they just cannot relate. So one, I'm a big proponent of really mental health being addressed as one of the key things when it comes to our longevity. Because also when mentally you feel strong, well rested, clear, everything else comes easier to you. And so the way also how it then links to longevity, and all my doctor's friends are now not going to be happy about what I'm about to say. But when you know that the placebo effect, that we know that placebo effect, let's say I have two pills. One is an actual painkiller. The other one is a sugar pill. And that means that I take I take the sugar pill and I truly believe that it is the painkiller and the pain goes away. The placebo effect is so strong that currently, whenever there's a new trial design to test any new therapy, you literally have to account for the placebo effect, which means it's so obvious to any doctor on earth that our mind plays such a strong component in our recovery, in our health, that should be also taken as additional, almost like a prescription that is absolutely for free when you train your mind on healthy, let's call it health span approach to life. Because your mind is such a powerful, massive pharmacy that is the best for you. It has no side effects, it's fully natural, but we also have to believe that we can do it. But when you really look at some of the cases we have seen that are all public knowledge in different research and scientific discoveries, placebo effect is crazy powerful. So again, everything starts with the way we feel and then how we think about it, and therefore hopefully we can take different action and then we can stay healthy much longer.
I love also that you use the word health span, because oftentimes we confuse lifespan with health span, because health span is actually the time that you're on this planet where you're healthy. And compared to lifespan is the actual number of years that you're here. But if you're, for example, turning 100, but the last 20 years you have just been in the hospital and you were not really healthy. So the health span was just 80 years. But actually, before going into that, one of the things that came to mind when you talked was that, as oftentimes we believe, okay, a healthy mind is also going to contribute to a healthy body. But oftentimes you don't think about it the other way. We don't think about it that a healthy body or also healthy nutrition can contribute to a healthy mind. Is that correct?
Oh my gosh, so spot on. Absolutely. And I'm really glad you mentioned that, because, in general, there are a little bit conflicting numbers on this, but in general, between 70 and 80% of our happy hormones come from our gut. So obviously, the moment we put all sorts of things we shouldn't be putting into our bodies, it obviously going to massively impact how we feel on a daily basis. And when you look at when people are now clinically depressed, and it's quite a shift actually also in the space of psychology and psychiatry, that one of the first interventions finally now that doctors are prescribing is, okay, why don't we get you off sugar, off processed food, just for a few months, and see, before I put you on a whatever drug that normally they would be put on, to really address, let's just cleanse your body a little bit more, and let's allow your body to get the feeling of feeling great, because the body absolutely will impact how we feel every day, and our mental state.
And that is in case that you have a good physician. That is in case that you have somebody who is actually progressive and who believes in the holistic point of view, and not just like, okay, let's take a pill, because that's actually the fastest and easiest way to show some progress. Would you agree?
100%. But I would also say, now there is no excuse on the physicians, because we have access to this beautiful thing called the internet. We can do our own research. We can get consultations from all sorts of different doctors around the world. So yes, pick your physician wisely. And if your physician doesn't speak the longevity mindset, just change. There are plenty of physicians, and there are also plenty of good ones. So just go and find the good ones. It will be one of the best investments of time and energy you can make when it comes to your health span.
So I'm going to ask, how do you pick the good one? How do you know that this is a good one?
You do like you do anything else when you're trying to find a good person. So I will try to draw an analogy to hiring a good person for whatever position you're hiring for. You interview. But before you can go into that interview, you need to educate yourself a little bit. What is it that you're looking for? So describe my ideal physician job description. Do some research. What does that mean? And I'm happy to recommend a bunch of books that will give you the base of wording, what longevity mindset is, and what kind of testing and kind of a preventative medicine space I would recommend the doctor to come from. But really do that. Educate yourself first. Write down, I'm looking for a doctor who understands this and this and this and this, because me, with my limited understanding of medicine, because I'm not a medical doctor, if I can understand that, then my doctor should too. And then you go speak to as many as you need to until you're happy with what you hear. And then, like with everything, put it on a trial period. Give it 3 months, 6 months, a year, and then we'll see. And then constantly adjust, and I understand it's not an easy shift. Often we have one doctor for one particular thing for 10, 12, 20 years. And it's great when the doctors are great. But if for whatever reason your results, meaning your body doesn't reflect what you want it to reflect, then I would just recommend changing. So approach it like any other hiring process. Now, I wanted to share something, Ronny, because actually I didn't know this until a few days ago. And given that I live in Asia, I'm embarrassed I didn't know this. But for anybody familiar with traditional Chinese medicine, TCM has been around for literally thousands of years. TCM is very popular in Singapore, very popular in Asia. And really, the way they look at the body is we're a whole full system. It's not, you don't have a, your limb doctor or your head doctor. No, you have one doctor who looks at everything. But this, I think most people know. What I didn't know was that when TCM was initially developed, the incentives of the system were exactly aligned with your health. What I mean by that, the physicians were getting paid for keeping you healthy. And when or if you fall sick, it was their duty to come and take care of you for free, because they only get paid when you are healthy. Isn't it? First of all, when I learned this, and I thought, I've been in Asia for 11 years, I spoke to so many TCM doctors, and I've never known that. But this is how also why there's so many centenarians living in this part of the world, because that's what they were initially taken care of by their physicians. So we have an example that lasted for a very, very long time, and the reason why it shifted is quite upsetting. But it lasted for a long time, and we know it worked. So it means, why don't we start thinking this way? Can I have my physician incentivized for keeping me healthy rather than dealing with my disease? Very different approach, and a very different way of thinking about your own health.
Wow. I love that. So we already teased it a little bit beforehand that you just came back from an incredible trip with Peter Diamandis, and you already said with 50 of the smartest people on the planet about the field of longevity, lifespan, health span. Tell us about the trip and what did you learn? What are the newest
honestly,
insights?
yes. I mean, I can. So if we have another 7 hours, I might be able to cover it. But let me just try to summarize. So first of all, it was literally like going on a trip into the future, and then you realize that all those people that were presenting,
And just for a second, for everybody does not know who Peter Diamandis is. Peter Diamandis is an incredible force about going into the future. He's one of the leading people on the planet about what's going to happen in the next 10, 20 years and so on, and also about exploring things that are going to help humanity, basically.
Yes, 100%. So that's a beautiful description of Peter. So Peter basically puts together once a year this incredible trip. So this year it was in Boston and New York, when we get to speak to the world experts in the field of longevity, health span, anti-aging, and the latest breakthroughs in the space of anything health. So the likes of David Sinclair, George Church, my favorite, Rudy Tanzi. Those are the people we were literally sitting in one room talking about what they're working on, what they believe the future is, how close we are to kind of really expanding our health span, not just lifespan. Because we're good with expanding lifespan, but the way we're currently expanding it, it's not very good. So what is the health span future looks like? And that was quite unbelievable. And then we hear from companies who are working on gene writing. It's no longer gene editing. You have a gene writer that specifically targets certain genes to make sure that a genetic condition can be fully reversed, and in also quite advanced stages, or 3D printing of organs, which was an incredible, even to be able to see that, just unbelievable stuff. What I would love to share is that I know what I want to share. Probably the key takeaway has been, you can take your own health into your own hands, which we just discussed, being the CEO of your own body, of your own health. And the second thing is, which probably is somewhat similar across most of the experts we talk to, because the question is, okay, you have all these amazing technologies coming up soon, but as you know, in anything medical development, it takes years to get this from initial discovery for this to be a treatment in most countries. We're talking anything from 10 to 17 years. It's a long time. So the question is, what can we do in the meantime? So in the meantime, we can do what is the acronym was developed by Rudy Tanzi together with Peter Diamandis. So we call it SHIELD. And SHIELD stands for S stands for sleep. H stands for handling stress. I stands for interaction with people, community, or we also say intimacy, because your personal relationship is super important. E is exercise. L, SHIELD L was to learn new things for your brain to get stimulated. And D is diet. So in a way, all those amazing people, when you ask them, what are the things I can do now so I can actually prolong my healthy way of living in my healthy body until all those great inventions come to life, they all agreed on those things. So I really hope your listeners take it. The acronym is SHIELD. I'm happy to also, if you just go to my Instagram or my website, I will make sure I post it there so it doesn't get lost. But it's really those things that, also when you think of our body is a little bit like a tree. It's one of those speakers that Dr. Helen Messier, she explained beautifully. She said, we're like a tree. So we have those, here we have a beautiful leaves, and you can see my leaves are red. We have the leaves here, then we have the trunk, and
on
then
the
you have
fingers,
the roots.
basically that.
Yes, right? The current way of dealing with our health is you address the fact that the colors that our leaves got discolored, and let's try to paint it over. But we don't really address not only the trunk, but specifically the root cause. So the roots, meaning the DNA, think of it this way, the DNA, it is the code of our life, but it's only 7% of our DNA is responsible for our longevity, our health span, which means 93% is all how we live our life, how much we can then influence whether your roots are healthy enough. And then here we go into early clinical interventions that we can do a lot. So then your leaves, and which is your health, your body, really thrives. So what I would say, other than this trip has absolutely changed my approach a fair bit about what's possible. I think the idea of us living healthily until 100 plus, it's really there. We just need to start doing basic stuff to make sure we don't destroy our bodies in ways that, honestly, it's a common sense health advice. Just do things that are good for you, and it's really quite basic. So, and then can I just share one thing?
Yes, but what before you do, just to because what, and please
Yes.
keep that thought. What do you want to share?
Yes.
Because you just mentioned that basically 7% is the DNA and 93% is actually what you do, like your habits and everything, how you live your life. And the same is true when somebody's saying, well, it's genetics. Like, for example, if somebody, and I hope I'm not going to hurt somebody's feelings, but when somebody's overweight and then their kids are overweight. Yeah. And then like the kids are like, well, I mean, it's genetics. And so it's nothing I can do. But then you look at their dog and the dog is overweight, and the dog for sure is not genetics. So it's really about the habits. It's really about the habits of how do you eat, how do you feed yourself, and that's just one example. Like it can be taken into every part of your life. So yes, there are some genetical aspects that we are actually facing, which is maybe like the color of your skin, the color of your hair, and so on, and some other things as well. But the vast majority, 93%, is the way that you live your life.
Yes. 100%. Look, it's honestly, I couldn't agree more. It's really understanding that genetics, it's not a lottery. It is lottery for 7% of different conditions that sometimes happen. And there are really genius people working on addressing those. But most of the chronic conditions that we are dying from these days, really none of it is genetic. Everything is about what we call, it's a very fancy word called epigenetics. So think of it this way: you have a piano, and the piano has fixed keys. How you play those keys, that's your epigenetics. So do I play? Do I eat well? Do I move? It's actually quite basic. Do I really trying to learn a little bit more about my own longevity mindset? Where are my information gaps? What is that I can do to do things better? And I think just hearing that, we all should be quite excited, because it means nothing, almost nothing that we've been kind of born with doesn't have to evolve into a serious condition. There's so many things we can do to make sure we live a beautiful and healthy life. And, healthy life, I'm not talking about absence of disease, because that's another one. We're speaking about English is not my first language, it's not your first language. And we had this conversation about how important that is to have clarity on the words that we're using that mean the same thing to us. And to me, when I think health, I do not think, oh, that I am not sick, so therefore I'm healthy. No, health means I'm in an optimal state of mental, physical, just energetic, absolute flow of life. And that is very different definition of us not being sick.
I love that. So somebody who is now intrigued and says, well, that sounds amazing. It's all in my hands. That's wow. I want to be healthy. How do I do it? What are your secrets on being healthy? Because you look very like you just radiate health in a way. And yeah, please share your secrets with us.
So my secrets, I would love to make it very complex, but it's really not. So the acronym SHIELD, that's probably my base. So I really fine tune my sleep. I make sure that I realize that a lot of my the story I shared about my health adventure really came from the fact that I was very stressed, and stress was absolutely so detrimental to my body. So I fine tune. It doesn't mean I don't get stressed. Of course I do. I'm a human, but I've learned to deal with this much faster and much easier. So that's I do it every day. Meaning for me, it's a meditation, is grounding of myself, really taking control of my own emotions in a way. I exercise 5-6 times a week, and that means which was also a big shift for me. I decided to really focus on building muscle mass, which, by the way, all those experts last week said if there is one thing we could put in a pill to give to people that would be the most powerful when it comes to your longevity is exercise. Exercise meaning build your muscle mass, work on your cardiovascular stuff. Both are very important. So I do
Kas,
it.
Just to pick up on that, because I just read a book, Outlive, where it also says that basically, especially between 65 and 80, like in that age, that this is where usually you lose the most muscle mass. And the reason why, or like in terms of new studies, why people are not getting older is because their muscles are not there anymore. So basically, or because they have lost so much muscle mass. So it's really strength training as well is something very important.
100%. Yes. So yes, and look, honestly, it's and especially for women, I think often we're just a little bit afraid of. You have this image of going to the gym, and you have this big guys, and I'm like, I don't want to become like them. I remember when I said it to my trainer that I hired, because I said I'm learning, like I really need to build muscle mass, but I don't want to. And I literally pointed at somebody who was very very like muscular, big, and he started laughing at me. He goes, first of all, for you to get to that stage is physically impossible, no matter how heavy you lift. So he was laughing. He goes, it's a very common misconception that, women lifting a little bit of weights, we're going to like balloon with muscles. It's not the case.
And really muscle mass. Arnold.
Exactly. You're going to be like a female Arnold. No, you're not going to be female Arnold. You're going to feel amazing. Because one of the things with muscles, and by the way, I also wanted to acknowledge you for reading Outlive by Peter Attia. I'm sure that it is somewhere here. Oh, it's in the other room. But actually, no, it's not. It's a heavy book, beautiful book. One of the best books on health span there is currently out there. Peter Attia is an incredible expert. So also for anybody who wants to understand a little bit what to do, kind of the actionable stuff. He has a beautiful podcast. His social media is filled with things to learn and implement. So I would highly recommend it. And to your point about the loss of muscle mass, it's a quite of a scary thing because our bodies often they're doing quite all right, but then we start losing muscle mass and our bones become very brittle, and that is often when a person breaks a hip and goes to a hospital. Unfortunately, the chances of very quick decline of health after that incident are extremely high. Now, then you said, okay, can I do anything to prevent this? Yes. Exercise, muscles, cardiovascular. Make sure you also work on your bone strength, on your flexibility, or mobility of your body. So all those things that you see, it's not rocket science. And honestly, like even I go outside in Singapore, I have to close my eyes not to see another gym popping up, another whatever studio popping up. So the places are there, people are there. We just need to get our bums into those places. Or if you don't feel like going to the gym, I feel you too. I travel like a mad person, so I don't always go to the gym, but I just put our beautiful YouTube. I put whatever exercise I want to do for 30, 45 minutes, and you can exercise equally great in the comfort of your own home. If you are too terrified with all this big Arnolds walking around, you can always find a way. Just get yourself moving. What do you do, Ronny, for your longevity mindset?
What do I do?
Mm-hmm.
I think well, one of the things. First of all, also I do exercise. I do run and also go to the gym. Also,
Yes.
I do actually take a lot of care about nutrition, like what goes into my body, and then of course also what I do is drinking lots of water,
Yes.
sleeping well, because you also mentioned about fine tuning the sleep. And another thing that I love to do is it's just about also being around positive people, like having a growth mindset, a mindset of abundance, of no matter how old you are, but there's so many things to learn and just to be curious.
Yes. So you see, you're literally doing the shield. It was literally that. That is that prescription. And you mentioned something that I want to also put a pin on it, is that your environment will shape you massively. And so big part of that environment are the people you have around. And it's no coincidence when people are a little bit bigger, you look at their friends group or their family circle, they would look in a very, very similar way because the habits and what we do is similar. Now, when you start hanging out with people who do have longevity mindset, what I call, you will change. You will change not only because it's almost like you see your own behavior and suddenly you see somebody's behavior and I'm like, yeah, I just deep inside know that what I'm doing for myself is not good. And I can see somebody doing so much better and having results. So that's quite incredible. And I also wanted to share that the longevity trip that I just came back from, it was 5 days. We did Boston and New York, smartest brains and minds from Harvard, MIT, really beautiful time. And one thing that Peter was very, very particular about, he said, I want you, all the people who attended, to live that longevity mindset for 5 days. And that meant all the meals we were given were perfect from longevity perspective. All the exercise we could try were quite crazy stuff we had access to, just to try new things that is coming up in the field of exercise and relaxation. We had access to all this. And, at the beginning, even for me, I love that stuff, but I'm like, that's a lot. What do you mean I cannot have even a little bit of a dark chocolate? And he goes, no, for 5 days, 5 days, you can do anything for 5 days. Just do it. And we can then talk at the end, whether you guys felt differently or not. And, keep in mind that our days would start at 6:37 a.m. with like a breakfast together, and we would go all the way until 10:30, 11. So it was intense. And everybody at the end said the fact that we could taste this kind of a perfect longevity routine for 5 days was such a game changer. So that's another one. Just give yourself permission to try 5 days, 7 days, whatever that is, whatever makes you comfortable. And you will literally feel so much better. That then after this is just a natural step to do better.
So if somebody is curious right now, like, and wants to try it out, where do you find the resources, or where do you find or let's say the strategy? Like, where do you find the nutrition that you should do, or are there books around it, or what can you recommend?
Absolutely. So I would say, and you mentioned it, Outlive by Peter Attia, incredible book to help you understand not only what we're currently doing wrong, but also very clear guidance of how to think about your own strategy for your own health. And that is the base, right? The strategy. Then the tactics come later. So I would say absolutely it's a great book. Life Force, which was Peter Diamandis and Tony Robbins' book. Incredible book also describing not only what you can do now, but also what is coming and what to look out for. And the one thing I would say, which I really, I understand when people get really confused, because when you just go onto our Professor Google and you say, what is the perfect longevity diet? You get such a spectrum of things, and you have experts disagreeing. And then you have, if the experts cannot agree, how on earth me, who doesn't have medical background, is not crazy nerdy, how am I going to get going? The reality is, I would say, take a deep breath and really use your common sense. And I promise you, the moment you start, if you just read one of the two books we just mentioned here, it will give you such a solid start, solid foundation. And then start doing the shield stuff, fine tune your sleep, make sure you move enough, make sure you learn, just super important for your brain. Food, again, it's so many conflicting advice. The one thing that I would say everybody agrees on is that sugar is unfortunately very, very, very bad for us. And look, I'm saying this smiling, and I am married to a Swiss man. We keep chocolate in our wine fridge. We don't drink, but we have a wine fridge and it's filled with chocolate. It's not easy, but I can also tell you that what is even harder is when your health goes down. So it's just a very nice trade-off. And again, I'm not saying that you should never eat chocolate for the rest of your life. No. What I'm saying is fine-tune your routine to be 80, 90% really good. And then you can have your 10%, a little bit of a space to have those delicious stuff. Absolutely. But really find first, remember that you can do it, that you can learn those things too, get some good quality content about it. And then 3, design your simple, easy and simple to implement routine and just start. And from this, you will feel so much different that it will give you 10x energy to really go deeper into all those things, which then we can talk about your genetic testing, your epigenetic clocks, fine-tune your supplements, fine-tune your hormonal balances, but that comes later. You know, let's start with basics, basics, and that's a beautiful start.
I love that. And the two books that you mentioned, I think they're both amazing, with Outlive and Life Force. And I want to throw in a few more if somebody really wants to go deep. One of the books that I read was also Lifespan. David Sinclair, he was with you on a trip, or you met him. Then How Not to Die, and also How Not to Diet. Like those books, yes. I also found very fascinating, both of them. And so I think in general, it's a very fascinating world of what's out there. From a career perspective, if somebody's out there and saying like, hey, this might be a field that actually is interesting, or that could be interesting, why do you believe that the field of biotech, health tech, and so on, why do you believe that this could be a fascinating field to be in for somebody?
I mean, look, I just told you that I came back from a trip with Peter and I felt like I went into the future. And to me, when you experience these things where the kind of a what if becomes what is, it's wild how amazing it is. So honestly, when people ask me, how do I get so much energy? And I jokingly say, I start with coffee. I'm joking, but I love coffee and I still drink coffee. I truly believe I don't really feel like I work anymore. I say I play every day with people I truly love and care about because they care about others. And we play with amazing toys that happen to be incredible for humanity. I mean, there's no better. You just have very different mindset of people working in this field. It's way more about we're building it for patients, for humans who suffer. And once I give you an example which really moved me, and that's a recent one. So I talk a lot about what we just talk here about, and I talk to some smaller groups when I get invited to talk to C-suite people, to give them more actionable stuff and kind of like almost like a mini prescription, what to do. But it's like I just talk a lot, and sometimes people come back and say, oh my gosh, Kas, this is difficult to implement, and some others come back saying, what is the next level, because I've done all this. Great. I had a mother reaching out to me, asking me to meet when I was in London, and I'm like, absolutely, happy to meet. And so I met with her, and then she said, your content changed how my daughter lives her life now. And not only, and her daughter had a chronic condition diagnosed. So not only she's on recovery, beautiful, but she started being excited about her life again. And we're talking teenage girls, which also for people who are not familiar with those very unhappy stats, one of the biggest issues now, we have a massive uptake in suicides in teenagers. And unfortunately, a big part of it is how they feel on a daily basis, and they're not feeling great. And often when you just tweak those conditions, so you tweak your routines daily, you get so much more energy that suddenly you see your future in a little bit brighter colors. And so that one conversation, which wasn't even about a person that I impacted, one-on-one. I haven't even met the daughter. We met later, but I haven't met them before that. That conversation, I thought, I think I have the best job on earth. I speak to the smartest people on earth. We're trying to bring those information to people a little bit sooner so they can stay healthy for longer. And at the same time, you literally change lives. If I can share actually one thing as well, which was also from the trip with Peter. So it was 45 of us in the room, and very few were actually doctors, physicians, few of them. But the rest of people are like me. I'm not a medical doctor. I work on the kind of a business side of bringing great health inventions closer to patients. And there were a few people who had nothing to do with this field. And one of them, when he shared, and I want to be respectful of, I don't know if he would like his name to be mentioned, but I think the story is very powerful. He came because his daughter was diagnosed with a genetic condition that basically resulted with her. She's now 10. She was diagnosed when she was born, so quite soon after birth. And that genetic condition would basically guarantee that by the age of 14, 15, she would be fully blind. So imagine as a parent, you come to those conferences, literally just hoping maybe I can learn one thing, that I can at least extend my daughter's vision. I mean, that's, when he shared that at the beginning, we all had chills because we're no longer talking about, great inventions and you can like write over your genes. We're talking as a real human who is there, who says, my daughter is losing eyesight and I feel so powerless. And all the doctors we've seen, they all say, well, it is what it is. So he said, I'm here to find answers. And what Peter brought into the room, that the different geniuses that we met from medical field, at the end of the trip at day 5, the gentleman stood up and he was in tears. He said, I expected to maybe learn one thing or two to follow up on after the trip. I have now multiple doctors who were presenting and they were speaking to us, reaching out to him personally saying, oh my gosh, there's this therapy, we should also look into this. Not only gave him what he called actionable hope, but he said, for the first time in my life, I believe my daughter's condition can be reversed. And when you go and you live, 10 years in a way that you're convinced there's nothing you can do, and it's his daughter, like, those are the moments when you ask me, why am I in this field? What's exciting about this? This is what's exciting. Because we, often when we talk anti-aging, people think, I don't know, your skin going to have no wrinkles. We're all going to be wrinkly, and it's beautiful. And that's something to celebrate. What I think of health span or biotechnology is really about also approaching conditions that are genetically driven. So in that particular case, is a genetic condition, but it can be changed. I mean, how crazy is this? We can literally bring now eyesight to people who are losing vision. Isn't it wild? So if this is not the best job or fields to be in, I don't know what is. For me, it is absolutely the best.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's also beautiful to hear your passion behind the topic, and that's fantastic. I love that. Kas, if there's somebody out there who would like to get in contact with you, who is like, wow, this is amazing, you inspired me, I just want to reach out, or maybe want to work with you, how can they find you?
Yes, so the usual suspects. So my Instagram, Kas Bordier, Twitter, that is no longer called Twitter, Kas Bordier, kasbordier.com, my website. Feel free to reach out. Anything I can do to help, I would love to help.
Oh, that's beautiful. Any last 30-second thought that you would like to leave us with?
Yes, that living in a beautiful state and with a vibrant energy is absolutely possible. And the great news is there are a few little things, few tweaks in your daily routine you can do to make it happen. So go after it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for all your insights, your wisdom, for being here. All the best to you. And once again, give it up for Kas Bordier.
Thank you, Ronny. It's been amazing. Thank you so much. You're incredible.
Thank you for sticking with us until the end. To make this content even more valuable for you, please leave a comment below and share your thoughts, and also share this video with somebody you care about who absolutely needs to see this. Thank you very much. Have an outstanding day and see you next time.